I'm now joined by the government, the Minister for Local Growth and Building Safety, Alex Norris, to discuss all of the day's news here. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me.
Quick view on plastic straws, though, which we were just talking about there. Where do you stand on them?
I have to say, I don't have a hugely strong view. Well, I, like everybody, wants to try and get single-use plastic out of my personal behaviour, so I avoid them where I can.
And can you understand the President's view there, though, that the paper ones are not a great replacement?
They're getting better in my experience. It's whether they can do a McDonald's milkshake to the bottom is always my test, and they can now.
That can take quite a long time to get through as well. They're sort of
not when I do it, Will, if I'm honest. But yeah.
Fair enough. Strawberry, vanilla, chocolate?
Chocolate,
OK,
always.
right, I've wasted 2 minutes now, I've got to get on. So today you're talking about £350 million, all new money, pledged for affordable housing. Talk me through it.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. Our affordable homes programme has been very strongly subscribed to. We put £500 million extra at the budget. Local authority and housing providers are desperate to access it, so we're putting more money into it now that will build more houses, mostly at a social rent, so that people can access it and get good homes.
And talk me through how this is administered. This is locally administered, centrally funded.
So this is centrally funded, a central pot of money that then local authorities and housing providers, registered housing providers, will come forward and say, this is a scheme we want to do, can we please access this money? And as our experience, as I say, of these few months in government has been that there's a lot of demand for it, so that's how we get the money out the door.
And I guess that the reason I kind of teed that up is how are you going to make sure that this money is used effectively? What are the sort of measuring sticks that you're going to hold local authorities to if they get given a pot of money? By when does the house have to be built?
Well, it's a competitive process. I mean, in house building, none of these processes are even, whether it's land acquisition, which can often be the hold-up, whether it's trickier planning in areas of, old brownfield that need land decontamination, all the way through more complex builds. So there's no kind of one timeline for it. But we do want the money out the door. We do want those houses built quickly because we're dealing with a situation where people badly need those homes. So, this is money now. This is money to get on with the job now.
I get that. It's not easy. But I guess, is there going to be some form of repercussions for a local authority or a local organisation that gets government money to build these houses but then fails to deliver on it?
Well, there routinely would be. If someone doesn't make their contract, then that money would have to be returned if they don't do what the deal was to do. I mean, the reality here, Will, we're talking about a situation where 160,000 children last night were in temporary accommodation. When I talk to families in Nottingham about what that means, how hard the school run is, how hard it is to keep the clothes clean, these are people who are really battling to keep their head above water. They need good housing. That's why we're entering into this space in the way that we are.
I guess to sort of round it all off, in campaigns, everyone makes pledges. Sometimes you get into government and find things are a bit harder and they're going to take a bit longer, even if the pledges were well thought through at the time. Are you confident sitting here today that 1.5 million homes will be hit by the end of Parliament? Yeah,
I mean, in terms of big commitments, our plan for change has Britain building and 1.5 million homes right at the bedrock. We could not have put that in clearer, bigger writing that we intend to do that. That's our commitment. That's what we're going to deliver.
And as confident today as ever that will be delivered?
Of course, absolutely.
Let's move on and talk about assisted dying. You voted in favour of the initial bill in November. Are you still thinking that way?
Yeah, I mean, my view is I want to see legislation that gives people that dignity and choice at the end of their life, with the protections to make sure that that is a free choice that they wanted to make. That certainly was my assessment of the bill at second reading. We will see this again in the Commons at some point. I'm not part of the committee that's considering it. And if any amendments are made, I'll make a judgment in light of those. But I do want to see a bill, in that direction.
When you saw the first version at second reading, how important was it to you that it had that sense check from a High Court judge being involved?
It was important that there was a check from a person of that sort of standing. I have to say, whether it was that person in and of itself wasn't a material factor for me. So, as I say, I've sort of seen some of the amendments that are knocking about. I'll see what the committee decides, but it'll be what's on the face of the bill when it gets back to the Commons.
Totally get that you reserve the judgment until all the details are there. But it seems to me, from what you're saying now, is your base case still seems to be that you'll vote in favour of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the principle I'm kind of using, Will, for it is that if that step was removed, I'd be really concerned. If that step is changed, well, I'll look at that on its merits to see whether the individuals or panel that are selected has that right quality and rigour. But it wouldn't be that wouldn't be a material change.
I'm interested in your take on this AI gathering in Paris. Clearly, a huge slew of very high-profile leaders were there. Obviously, Keir Starmer didn't go. Was that by design? And I say that now after it's sort of wrapped up. And of course, grabbing a lot of attention is that the two notable countries that didn't sign the communique was the UK and the US.
Well, we speak as one voice as a government. Peter Cow was there as Secretary of State, I think, as you'd expect, Wilf, and he, pushed...
But with the greatest respect to him, he's not Narendra Modi or Justin Trudeau or President Macron or indeed Vice President Vance.
No, but all premiers, that have busy diaries, they choose different events or choose whether to send their people. The reality is the message is the same. And, we asserted, our view and Britain's interest in this role. Again, AI is a huge underpinning of our plan for change. It's going to change all of our lives to some degree. We think it's really important. We want to get to the right place with our neighbours.
Maybe I didn't articulate my question well. Was it intentional to choose something that perhaps isn't as important as NATO or important as some G7 summit? It is important, but not that important, to side with the US purposefully and just show the new administration that we're not just going along with the status quo of the EU and the rest of Europe?
No, well, that's not how we make decisions. We make decisions based on what's best for the British people. That's what we've done in this situation, as we would do on any situation, global or domestic, and that's what we've done here.
In terms of the latest in the Middle East, do you think that it is fair for Prime Minister Netanyahu to cancel the ceasefire deal in full if hostages are not released as previously agreed by this weekend?
We want to see the ceasefire deal implemented in all of its stages. That relies on both parties to keep the commitments they've made to. That's what we want to see. That's what we will advocate for.
What if the hostages aren't released? Has he got free rein, essentially, to go back to how things were previously?
I wouldn't want to comment on what may or may not happen. The reality is there's a deal that has created a cessation of hostilities. That's what we want to see upheld, and we want to see it develop to its fullest extent so that we can get, Palestinian people have suffered terribly, displaced from their homes, get them home and start to build a viable two-state solution for the future.
And just finally, it's interesting watching the press conference yesterday with the King of Jordan that President Trump held. Obviously, those areas the King of Jordan pushed back on President Trump on, but there was a lot of praise for President Trump too. I use this phrase loosely, but do you think it's starting to emerge that there's method in the madness behind some of the more outlandish things that President Trump says, or not? Is it very important, particularly on this issue above all else, to be more careful with words?
Well, I think you should always, certainly in politics, be careful with the words that you choose. In reality, we know that President Trump had an important role in the ceasefire deal itself. So again, I don't think it's revelatory, Wilf, to say that the President of the United States can have a really big and important bearing on global developments and a really positive one for peace. And that's, what we've seen with that deal, and I'm sure we'll see in the future as well.
Alex Norris, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated.